Villager trading in Minecraft 1.21 has never been more powerful. Brand new trades, hidden buffs, and completely broken emerald farms. Today I'm ranking the best villager trades in Minecraft from C tier to S tier, from the useless trades you should avoid to the game-breaking S tier villagers that can carry your world. And you'll want to stick around for S tier because the most overpowered trade in Minecraft 1.21 isn't what you think it is. C tier. Now I'm going to be honest, these villagers are basically a distraction on your way to the real goal, the S tier trades. So without further ado, let's blitz through C tier so we can get to the actual good stuff. First is the Leatherworker. This used to be valuable for saddles, but now of course they're craftable, and most of their trades are just cosmetic. Yeah, dyed leather armor looks nice, but it's not going to get you to S tier power, is it? We got the Butcher, who has rabbit stew and coal trades, all outclassed by better food and emerald farms. The real food upgrades are sitting in A and S tier, no reason to stop here. Next we have the Armourer. Chainmail looks unique, but it's weaker than iron. We'll talk about this villager again much higher in the list, but for now these early trades are dead weight. Then we have the Cleric, who has redstone and glowstone, both renewable from farms or the nether. You'll see this villager again later, but not for these trades, these are trash. And the final villager on the list, the Fisherman, who has raw fish, low value fish trades. The Fisherman's real value appears later in a trade that could rival some S tier setups. Alright, that's the trash cleared, but don't skip ahead. B tier has trades that look average but can explode into emerald generators if you know how to use them right. And some of these could almost be A tier if done right. The Shepherd is a perfect example. At first glance it seems like a purely decorative villager, selling dyes and coloured wool, but the trades for white and red dye are surprisingly strong. White dye is just bone meal, so if you've got a skeleton farm, that's essentially free emeralds. Also, red dye from rosebush duping works the same way. It's not an infinite money printer, but in the right setup the Shepherd quietly turns into a passive emerald generator. Next up is the Toolsmith. By the time you level this villager to journeyman, they start selling enchanted iron tools for emeralds. This is an amazing shortcut if you're trying to skip crafting early game gear. Sure, these tools get replaced once you're in full diamond or netherite, but early on, this trade saves you time, saves you resources, and keeps you moving towards bigger upgrades. The Weaponsmith sits in a similar spot. At master level, they'll sell you a diamond sword. It's not the flashiest trade, but it saves you from burning through your diamond stash just to keep a good weapon in rotation. Combine a Weaponsmith with a Toolsmith and you can fully gear up for combat without touching a single diamond ore block. Then there's the Librarian, but not for the reasons most people think. Everyone knows about enchanted books, but here I'm talking about the name tag trade. At master level, the Librarian sells you name tags for emeralds. It might sound like a side item, but it's essential for farms, name tagging zombies in an iron farm, or keeping zombie villagers from despawning while you cure them. It's expensive, but it completely removes the hassle of fishing or hunting through loot chests for something you can just buy. Finally, we've got a surprising entry, the Butcher. The Butcher isn't as useless as most people think. If you've got a farm for pigs, cows, or chickens, you can trade the raw meat directly for emeralds. And once he levels up, he'll also buy dried kelp blocks for emeralds, which means an automatic kelp farm can basically turn into an emerald farm. So while B tier doesn't have the game-breaking power of S tier, there are trades here that can quietly set up your emerald economy, your gear progression, and your automation. All things that make the jump to A tier much smoother. Speaking of A tier, this is where villagers start to change your game. The trades here aren't just convenient, they'll speed up your progression and get you ready for broken S tier villagers waiting at the top. Let's start with the Cleric. At lower levels we saw redstone and glowstone, which were forgettable, but once you unlock enderpearl trades, the Cleric becomes a huge time saver. No more wandering the open world at night looking for endermen, no more praying for good drops. You can stockpile pearls quickly, making your trip to the end much smoother. It's not a flashing trade, but it cuts out a frustrating grind entirely. The stonemason might not sound exciting, but this utility in A tier is all about efficiency. The trade that starts out here is granite, diorite and andesite for emeralds. These blocks pile up constantly in chests, clogging storage. With a stonemason, that junk turns into emeralds, and if you mine regularly or run a quarry, this is basically free money. The fisherman makes their move into A tier thanks to a simple but insanely efficient trade: boats. At master level, you can trade a single boat for an emerald. With the shovel removed from the recipe, that's just 5 planks. In wood-rich biomes, this trade is basically printing emeralds. It's fast, renewable, and ridiculously easy to scale. And finally, the cartographer. The villager can feel like a gimmick at first, but 2 trades stand out massively. Glass panes for emeralds is one of the most underrated moneymakers in the game. Smelt sand into glass, craft it into panes, and the emerald return is incredible. And guess what? I've actually recently released a sand duper, so you can literally duplicate the sand, turn it into glass, and get infinite emeralds. Link in the description. But the real power comes from explorer maps. These maps point directly to rare structures like woodland mansions or ocean monuments. Without them, finding these structures can take hours of exploration. With them, you have a direct route, and often access to resources you can't get anywhere else. A tier villagers aren't just nice to have, they make your progression smoother, your emeralds more abundant, and they open up content that would otherwise take hours to reach. And all of this is the perfect setup for S tier. Because S tier is where trades stop being good and start being broken. These villagers don't just help your progression, they completely change the game. But before we get there, I've got a few honourable mentions. These aren't quite game breaking, but in the right setup, they can be insanely useful. First up is the Cleric. At master level, he sells bottles of enchanting for emeralds. Normally, you'd only find these in rare loot chests, but with a Cleric, you've got a renewable source. It's basically portable XP on demand, which makes repairing gear or enchanting way more convenient. And then there's the Fletcher's arrow trade. It's cheap, renewable, and unless you've got a huge skeleton farm, it's one of the fastest ways to stockpile arrows. Not S tier, but definitely worth having on the side. These 2 honourable mentions might not be as universally broken as what's coming next, but in the right setup, they can almost punch their way into S tier. Speaking of S tier, this is the payoff. These are the villagers that break Minecraft's economy and make progression feel completely different. Let's start with the Fletcher, arguably the most famous S tier villager. The trade that puts them here is simple: 32 sticks for 1 emerald. This trade is completely game breaking because wood is one of the most renewable, accessible resources in Minecraft. In the right biome, dark oak, spruce, or even a tree farm, you can produce thousands of sticks in no time. And unlike crops or speciality materials, you don't need a complex farm. An axe and a little patience, and suddenly your emerald economy is unlimited. But the Fletcher doesn't stop there. At higher levels, you can pick up trades for regular arrows and tipped arrows. For players running ranged combat builds, this essentially gives you unlimited ammunition without ever touching a skeleton farm. And because you can access the stick trade so early, the Fletcher can power your entire emerald economy, making other expensive trades completely trivial. Next is the Armourer, the villager that lets you skip one of the longest grinds in Minecraft: diamond armour. At master level, you can buy a full set of enchanted diamond armor for emeralds. No strip mining, no searching caves for hours. Combine this with a strong emerald source, like a Fletcher or farmer, and you can be in full enchanted diamond gear without ever breaking a single diamond ore block. And here's where it gets even better. The enchantments on the armor don't matter. Why? Because once you have the pieces, you can strip bad enchantments with a grindstone and replace them with the perfect enchantments from a librarian. This means your armourer isn't just a shortcut to diamond armour, it's your personal gear supplier for every set you'll ever need. The farmer is another S tier giant, but not for every crop. The real power comes from 2 specific trades: golden carrots and pumpkins and melons. Golden carrots are widely considered the best food in Minecraft because of their saturation. They keep you full for longer than steak or pork chops, meaning less time managing hunger and more time exploring or fighting. Crafting golden carrots normally costs 8 gold nuggets each, which adds up fast. The farmer bypasses that cost completely. You're buying the best food in the game for just emeralds. Then there's the melon and pumpkin trades. Paired with an automated farm, these become infinite emerald generators. Melons, in particular, have an incredibly low trade threshold, just 4 melons for 1 emerald. A single melon farm can produce enough for hundreds of emeralds per hour with almost zero effort. And of course, we can't talk about S tier without coming back to the Librarian, this time for the trade everyone was waiting for: enchanted books. Mending, Unbreaking 3, Efficiency 5 and Sharpness 5. With Lecton Cycling, you can get any enchantment in the game locked into a trade. This single villager lets you fully max out every piece of gear you own, making an enchanting table and XP grinding almost obsolete. And when you combine this with the Armourer, Toolsmith and Weaponsmith, you can fully kit yourself in god tier armour and tools without even mining more than a handful of diamonds. So as you can see, S tier doesn't just save time, they don't just make your life easier, they fundamentally change the way you play Minecraft. Once you unlock these villagers, emeralds stop being a limitation, diamonds stop being a grind, and the game opens up in ways it simply doesn't without them. But what's the best way to get your villagers? Well, I've actually built the best villager breeder, which allows you to essentially duplicate villagers so that you can get all of these trades so much easier. So do please leave a like and then check out that video. See you soon!